I was zipping up my wedding dress when my mom called to say they weren't coming. They chose my sister's baby shower over my wedding day. And no, it wasn't a scheduling accident. It was intentional. "Hi, I'm Haley." That moment should have shattered me. But instead, it opened my eyes to everything I'd been ignoring for years. If your own family ever made you feel like a background character in your own life, this story might feel a little too familiar. Would you still let them back in, or would you finally choose peace over obligation? Tell me what you would have done. I'd really love to hear it. The zipper glided smoothly up the back of my dress, and for a brief, shimmering moment, I actually felt like a bride. The satin hugged my waist just right, the lace sleeves caught the light like something out of an old movie, and the air smelled of garden roses from the aisle arrangements waiting downstairs. Then my phone rang. I didn't think. I just picked it up instinctual, like I'd been trained my whole life to jump when her name flashed across the screen. "Hi, Mom," I said, still watching my reflection, half smiling. Her voice was light. Too light. "Sweetheart, listen, I just wanted to catch you before the ceremony." Something in my chest tightened. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Are you and Dad almost here?" She sighed, that soft, almost musical exhale she used when softening a blow. "We won't be making it today, honey. Jessica's shower just couldn't be moved. All her new neighbors are already there. We didn't realize it would overlap so badly." Overlap. Like my wedding was some inconvenient potluck on the calendar. I couldn't speak. "Not immediately. We're so proud of you," she went on. "But Jessica really needed us there. You understand. I didn't. But I also didn't fight. Because somewhere deep beneath the dress, the flowers, and the excitement, I'd always known this was possible. Maybe even probable." "I see," I said. Linda, the wedding coordinator, poked her head in with a cheerful knock. 10-minute warning. She froze when she saw my face. "Haley," I turned slightly away, phone still pressed to my ear. "Anything else?" I asked Mom. There was a pause. "We'll call tomorrow. And hey, don't let this ruin your day. Okay?" She hung up before I could reply. My hands dropped to my sides. The phone felt heavier now, like a stone I'd been carrying all my life, but hadn't noticed until that moment. Linda stepped in cautiously. "Do you need a second?" I nodded. She closed the door with gentle grace, like she was afraid to make the air vibrate. For a moment, I just stood there. The bride in the mirror looked composed, polished. The pearls at my throat, Grandma's pearls, sat perfectly, as if nothing in the world had cracked. But inside, I wasn't a bride. I was 8 years old again, left behind on the front porch, while my family drove off to Jessica's piano recital. I was 16, standing in the kitchen with a broken trophy because Jessica had knocked it off the shelf, and I'd been the one scolded for being too careless. I was 29, dressed in white, and still invisible. The silence pressed in like water. Then I inhaled. One long, steady breath. The kind of breath that lifts more than your lungs. It lifts your spine, your jaw, your chin. I scrolled through my contacts and hit the name I knew by heart. Pumpkin Grandpa Walter answered after the first ring. "Everything okay?" My throat closed for a second, but then words came. "Mom and Dad aren't coming," I said. "They chose Jessica's baby shower." A pause. Not of hesitation. Just quiet rage calmed by years of patience. "Will you walk me down the aisle?" I asked. His voice broke slightly. "I'd be honored. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't need to." I ended the call, set the phone gently on the vanity, and turned back to the mirror. My eyes were clearer now. Not dry, but clear. This wasn't about being surprised. It was about being done. I touched the pearls at my neck. "It's not about who didn't come," I whispered. "It's about who always did." A knock came again, 2 gentle raps. "Whenever you're ready," Grandpa said from the other side of the door. I reached for the handle with steady hands. Because today I wasn't walking toward what I lacked. I was walking toward everything I had finally chosen to keep. When I was 9, Jessica got a pony for her birthday. A real one. Chestnut-colored with a pale white mane and a ribbon braided through its tail. She rode it around our backyard while everyone clapped and took pictures. I got a handmade card from Mom with glittery letters and a line that read, "You're so mature for your age." At the time, I told myself that meant something. I stirred the pie dough too long. Grandma Ruth gently touched my hand. "Not too much, sweetheart," she said. "You'll wake the gluten." I let the wooden spoon drop and leaned against the kitchen counter, the flour-dusted apron bunching at my waist. It was the morning after my wedding, or what should have been my parents' daughter's wedding. But the only parent who'd shown up was Grandpa Walter, who walked me down the aisle without missing a beat. And Grandma, who didn't say much that day, but smiled with so much quiet pride it nearly broke me. The kitchen smelled like brown sugar and butter. Outside the window, their small garden bloomed with spring tulips. Everything should have felt soft, easy. But the memories wouldn't sit still. I remember the Disneyland trip. Jessica was 7, I was 6. They packed the car with matching Minnie Mouse t-shirts and pink luggage. I stood on the porch with my little suitcase, hopeful. Mom knelt down, kissed my forehead, and said, "You're staying with Grandma and Grandpa. Disneyland might be too much for someone like you, someone like me." That night, Grandma let me roll pie crusts. Grandpa taught me to play checkers. I laughed. But when I looked out the window at the empty driveway, I still felt smaller than the rolling pin in my hands. Back in the present, I checked my phone. Ethan had texted, "Thinking of you. Call if you need quiet." I didn't answer right away. "I saw how you stood yesterday," Grandma said, suddenly her back to me, straight spine, eyes ahead. "That's strength, Haley." I bit my lip, focusing on a crack in the tile. Sometimes I feel like that strength just made them look the other way more. She didn't argue. She rarely did. That was part of her gift. She let the space between us speak until I filled it myself. Flashback high school, junior year. Jessica had been furious that I'd been invited to a birthday party she wasn't. We fought in the hallway. She shoved me hard into the linen closet door. The edge cut my eyebrow. When Mom found me pressing tissues to my face, she asked, "What did you do to upset her?" I said nothing. The lie had long been carved into my tongue. I remember baking apple pie that night. Grandma handed me a cinnamon shaker. "Some people need more attention," she'd murmured, "and some just quietly survive it." I didn't ask which one I was. I already knew. A knock pulled me from the memory. Grandma opened a drawer, pulled out a small photo, and held it toward me. I wiped my hands before taking it. It was me, about 12 cheeks dusted in flour, standing in the exact same kitchen, holding a misshapen pie crust with the proudest grin. "That's who you're walking back toward," she said. I studied the photo, my smile then versus now. I hadn't realized how different they'd become. "I don't even remember this moment," I whispered. "You don't have to," she said. "She's still in there." Ethan texted again. "Love you. No rush to call back, just here." I smiled, finally a soft, honest one. Maybe strength isn't always about being fine. Sometimes it's about finally saying what no one else would. 3 days after the wedding, a floral card arrived in our mailbox. It smelled faintly of perfume, Mom's favorite, the one she wore on church Sundays, and Jessica's graduation. No return address, no signature. Just a pale pink card with embossed roses and 5 words in looping cursive. "We hope it was lovely." I stared at it for a long time before setting it on the kitchen counter next to our half-unpacked toaster. The apartment still smelled like fresh paint and cardboard. Morning light filtered through the blinds, catching the dust that floated around like dandelion seeds. Ethan had left early for work, his coffee mug still sitting beside mine, a ring of cream drying at the rim. I opened my phone out of habit. The social media feed was still full of Jessica's baby shower. Balloons. A pastel cake shaped like a bassinet. Photos of her surrounded by relatives I hadn't seen in years. My cousin Julia arm slung around Jessica like they were lifelong best friends. Julia had RSVP'd yes to our wedding. The caption read, "So grateful for all the love yesterday. Baby girl is already so spoiled." Spoiled wasn't the word I would have used. I felt it again, that hollow thump in my chest. Not pain, not even betrayal anymore. Just that dull echo where belief used to live. The card still sat there, so polite, so empty. I picked it up, flipped it over. Nothing on the back. I should have been used to this by now, these gestures that hinted at care without ever fully arriving. I tossed the card into the drawer with the batteries and forgotten instruction manuals. Later that afternoon, Ethan called during his lunch break. "How are you doing, really? he asked, the clink of his fork soft in the background. I don't know, I admitted. I feel tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. He didn't rush in with advice. He waited. I keep telling myself it's not about the wedding, I said. It's just everything before that day that made the wedding feel inevitable. Ethan exhaled softly. Would you ever talk to someone? A therapist, I mean. I hesitated. Not because it was a bad idea, but because it felt like admitting I hadn't figured it out on my own. Still, I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I think I would. That evening, I found Dr. Lillian Ames through a university resource list. Her profile said she specialized in generational trauma and family systems. Her face in the photo was kind but direct wire-rimmed glasses, gray streak at her temple, a calm gaze that looked like it had seen things and survived them. I booked a phone consult for the next day. When she picked up, her voice was low and smooth, like the first page of a novel read out loud. Hi, Haley. What would you like to begin with? I paused. The usual opening, my parents didn't come to my wedding, felt too sharp, too obvious, too recent. It's not about that one day, I said finally. It's about how every day before taught me not to expect better. She didn't interrupt. I used to tell myself I was the strong one, the one who didn't need as much. And they let me believe that. They made me wear that like a badge. Dr. Ames made a soft noise of understanding. What happens when the badge becomes a burden? I didn't answer. But I knew. You stop asking for anything at all. Later that night, while I was folding towels in the living room, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. We all make mistakes. Family forgives. No punctuation. Just floating there like it had been copied from a greeting card and dropped into my inbox. I read it once. Then again. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because I knew what she meant. You're supposed to come back now. She wanted forgiveness without the uncomfortable part, the ownership. The real conversation. I returned to the couch. The TV was playing something forgettable. Ethan came out of the bedroom, hair damp from a shower, and dropped beside me. How was your call? I leaned into his shoulder. Hard, but good. We sat in silence for a while. Then I turned to him. What would it even look like if I didn't carry all this anymore? He didn't answer, just pulled the blanket higher around my shoulders. The next day in my session, I asked Dr. Ames the same thing. She paused. Maybe she said you'd stop flinching when the phone rings. And just like that, I realized I did flinch. Every time. Jessica's email began with, I'm sorry. It ended with, I thought you'd understand. I stared at the screen long after I'd finished reading it. My tea had gone cold. The apartment smelled faintly of garlic and rosemary. Ethan was cooking something in the kitchen, humming tunelessly like he always did when he was trying not to worry about me. I read the email again. And then again. There was no greeting. No hi, Haley. No warmth. Just a wall of text that opened with vague contrition and quickly pivoted into justification. She admitted scheduling her baby shower on my wedding day. It wasn't personal, she wrote. I just needed something that felt like mine. Then, you always seemed so independent. I didn't think you'd mind. I didn't even know what to feel. Not anger, not really. More like I'd walked into a room expecting furniture and found only outlines on the carpet. I set the laptop aside and moved to the kitchen. Ethan looked up from the skillet. Okay, he asked gently. I pulled a glass from the cupboard. She wrote. He nodded like he knew it was coming. Anything meaningful, he asked. She said she needed that day to be about her, I said, and she figured I wouldn't mind. Ethan turned the burner down and wiped his hands. And how does that sit with you? It doesn't, I said, voice tighter than I intended. He didn't offer solutions, just stepped forward and kissed the top of my head. I left the kitchen and curled up on the couch with a yellow legal pad, one of the ones I used for grocery lists, and scribbled recipe notes. At the top, I wrote what I needed from you, and then I just wrote. I wrote that I needed her to show up not just to events, but to me, to see me as more than the shadow of her applause. I wrote that I needed someone who didn't weaponize their neediness. That I needed someone who wouldn't step over me to get what she wanted. I wrote that being the independent one wasn't a gift, it was a role I had to play, because there was no room left for vulnerability. I didn't cry, that surprised me most. When I finished, I tore the page out slowly and folded it in half. I didn't plan to send it. It wasn't for her. The next morning, I took it with me to therapy. Dr. Ames tilted her head as she listened. Her office was full of soft blues and a rug that looked like ocean waves. I told her about the email about the legal pad, about not knowing what I was supposed to do with Jessica's sudden truth. She apologized, I said, but it felt like a transaction. Like she offered a refund without acknowledging the damage. Dr. Ames nodded. There's a difference between seeking forgiveness and seeking re-entry. I sat with that for a while. She wants things to go back, I said. Not forward, just back before consequences. Dr. Ames leaned forward slightly. What do you want, Haley? I want to not be the one holding the bag, I said. Every time someone else drops it. Silence stretched. Not uncomfortable, just wide. You can forgive someone, she said, without rebuilding the bridge they burned. Later that evening, I opened Jessica's email one more time. I read every line slowly. I checked for signs of sincerity that I might have missed. I didn't find any. Then I deleted it. I didn't reply. I didn't archive. I didn't keep it in case I changed my mind. Because I wasn't looking for a better ending. I was just done reading the same book. As I shut the laptop, my phone vibrated with a new message. I expected Ethan or maybe Dr. Ames confirming our next session. Instead, it was Grandpa Walter. Thanksgiving's at Ethan's folks this year, right? Should we bring Grandma's cranberry pie or try that sweet potato thing from last year? I smiled. There it was again, love that showed up, not love that performed. I tapped back. Bring both. We're building new traditions. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon-spiced cider wrapped around me the moment I stepped into Ethan's parents' house. The warmth hit instantly, not just from the fire crackling in the stone hearth or the oven still humming, but from the noise. Laughter. Someone's off-key humming. The clatter of silverware. Life. I shrugged off my coat and set the pie down on the sideboard, narrowly missing one of the family dogs circling for crumbs. Ethan's mom, Sharon, bustled over in her cranberry-colored apron. You made it, she said, hugging me with the full force of someone who'd already tasted her wine. Come see, we made room. She guided me into the dining room, where the table stretched nearly wall to wall, covered in a patchwork of old table runners and polished dishes. Candles flickered in mason jars, and paper name cards leaned against folded napkins. That's when I saw them. 2 extra chairs, one at each end of the table. No name tags, no place settings. No one mentioned them. I opened my mouth to ask and stopped. Because I understood. I found my seat beside Ethan and sat down carefully, like the moment deserved more than just habit. Across from me, Grandma Ruth smiled over her glasses. You look rested, she said. It's a trick of the lighting, I replied. She leaned closer and whispered, We're proud of how far you've come, baby. I didn't say anything back. I couldn't trust my voice. Grandpa Walter stood just before the meal began. Everyone quieted, even the dogs. He held up his glass, his voice firm but soft. There are all kinds of ways to show up, he said. Physically, emotionally, silently. Some folks show up with their whole hearts. Some show up out of habit. And some don't show at all. He paused. No one shifted. No one filled the silence. We're grateful for every person at this table, he went on, and also for the space we leave for memory, for growth, and for whatever comes next. We raised our glasses. I didn't look at the empty chairs. But I felt them there, and not there all at once. Dinner was loud in the best way. Ethan's youngest brother tried to sneak a roll before Grace and his mom swatted his hand with a serving spoon. Ruth argued with Ethan's dad about how long to rest the turkey. Laughter came in bursts like fireworks, unexpected and warm. Midway through the meal, Sharon reached across the table and handed me a folded index card. Haley's Sweet Potato Bake. It read in looping pen. You're one of us now, she said. You get a dish named after you. My throat tightened. I held the card for a long second as if it might vanish. No conditions, no comparisons, just family. Later during dessert, I picked up a forkful of pecan pie and realized something strange. I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't bracing for a passive-aggressive comment or watching my words like landmines. I wasn't wondering what version of myself I needed to perform to keep things calm. I was just eating pie. That felt like a miracle. I glanced at the 2 chairs again, still untouched, still silent, and yet I felt something close to peace. I didn't miss them, but I was grateful for what they represented, the people I no longer bent myself to please. Grandma caught me looking. She didn't say anything, just nodded once like she knew. Ethan leaned in close as the last of the plates were cleared. "We should print that photo," he said, quietly brushing a crumb from my sleeve. "Your smile was real today." And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. I used to think family was about blood and obligation. Holiday cards, birthday calls, matching sweaters and awkward photos. Now I think it's about presence, about peace. The kind that comes in slow, quiet moments when no one is asking anything of you. The house smelled like cinnamon and cedar. Ethan had found a candle at the winter market with a handwritten label, "Christmas Eve Kitchen." He lit it every night after dinner. I teased him about it, but secretly I loved that he wanted our home to smell like memory before memory had even settled. I sat on the rug beside a half-decorated tree. A string of lights blinked unevenly. We'd gotten distracted midway through, hanging them, debating whether blue bulbs were festive or just sad. The box labeled "Old Things" sat open next to me. I'd pulled it out to find the tree skirt, but ended up sifting through a decade instead. Photos, me and Jessica as kids in matching dresses, me at science camp with braces and a sunburned birthday cards with stiff handwriting, a stack of unsent thank you notes from college, postcards I'd meant to send but never did, and tucked between it all, a wedding invitation addressed to my parents, still sealed. I had written it, stamped it, and then kept it in a drawer, already knowing it wouldn't matter. I held it in my palm for a long time. Then I stood, grabbed the small ceramic fire dish Ethan had bought last fall, the one for burning notes or herbs during his let things go phases, and placed the card inside. I lit the candle. The envelope curled at the corners, then blackened, shrinking into itself. I watched it disappear, not with sadness but with finality. Ethan walked in from the kitchen, drying his hands on a dish towel. "Want to open one gift early?" he asked. I smiled. "Only if it's socks." He laughed and handed me a small wrapped square. Inside was a hand-carved wooden sign, the kind you'd see in mountain lodges or on cozy Pinterest boards. The letters were simple, etched deep into the grain. "The family we choose." I swallowed once. Twice. "This was Grandpa's favorite saying," I said, running my fingers over the wood. "I know," Ethan said softly. "Your grandma told me." I looked around the living room. Bare walls, a half-finished tree, a life not yet settled but already full. I walked over to the mantel and picked up a silver frame. It held a photo Ethan had taken candid and a little crooked Grandpa Walter, standing tall in his navy suit, my hand tucked into the crook of his arm. I was smiling, and it wasn't forced. It was real. I hung it above the mantel, right in the center. Not a shrine, just a place of honor. That night, after Ethan went to bed, I lingered in the living room. The tree lights glowed softly. I sat on the couch blanket, tucked around my legs, hands folded in my lap. Jessica never responded to the letter I never sent. Mom and Dad didn't reach out after Thanksgiving. And for the first time in years, I didn't need them to. I glanced up at the photo. The memory felt light now, not like a burden, but like something solid beneath my feet. I whispered, "This time I chose who shows up in my story, and I meant it." I turned off the light, leaving only the tree and the candle flickering. As I climbed the stairs, I looked back one last time. The house didn't feel empty. It felt full of everything we'd chosen to keep. I used to think closure had to come from the people who hurt you, but sometimes peace arrives when you stop waiting and start choosing who truly belongs in your life. We don't get to pick the family we're born into, but we can choose the one we build with kindness, presence, and care that shows up when it matters. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it simply means letting go without bitterness. If this story reminded you of someone you've loved lost, or finally learned to set boundaries with, Feel free to share your thoughts. Some stories are lighter when carried together,